Okay, this is Seedah, part 4, last part in Storytime with Sabrina. Chapter 4, Happy Ever After. Having been looking down and around at the clouds in the sky and what the earth looked like from way up above it, Seedah was taken by surprise to suddenly see grass and flowers up close. Yesu gently set her down so that they could walk and enjoy the cool, soft grass on their bare feet. The scenery was amazing. Everything she saw was so bright, the colors so vivid, the smell of the grass and flowers so strong and sweet, and soon they could hear beautiful singing. As they came up over a smooth green knoll, Seedah saw someone coming out of a beautiful glowing walled city to meet them. As he came closer, she thought the way he walked and carried himself was familiar. Suddenly the moment of recognition came. "Daddy!" she yelled and ran towards him. He caught her in his arms and twirled her around as if she were still a little child. While he held her, she cried tears of relief and happiness. Smiling, Yesu came up to them, hugged them both, and wiped her tears away. After the emotion of the moment was over, the three of them continued walking toward the shining city. Seedah's father told Seedah about his life in the beautiful city, and Seedah filled her dad in on news of her mother and brother and other relatives. As they got close to the city, Seedah began to realize that the walls were much taller than she had thought. Finally, they were standing in front of the open gate, which was shiny and iridescent like a pearl. The tall walls were framed with a type of fiery red solid rock, but filled in with a transparent gold. Seedah noticed that she could see the foundations of the wall as well as the frame, thanks to the transparency of the gold of which the wall was made. The foundations were decorated with brightly colored jewels like blue sapphires, green emeralds, purple amethysts, 12 different kinds of jewels and precious stones in all. She had never seen most of them before, but they were definitely pretty. After Seedah had taken in enough of the beauty of the wall, she joined her father and Yesu again at the gate. On entering the gate, she stood with her mouth a little open and her eyes wide open, taking in the intense beauty all around her. First of all, there was the street on which she stood, which was made of the same transparent gold that the walls were made of. If you looked long enough, you could begin to see the people of the earth, specifically the ones you knew who were following Yesu's ways. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a few people gathered in a group close by, looking intently through the glassy golden street, making the sorts of comments one would make to encourage one's friends or favorite team if they were playing in a football game. Seeing what had caught her attention, her father spoke softly. "Not so long ago, I was cheering you on as you stood up to the soldiers and finished your race well," he said with a touch of pride in his voice. Smiling, Seedah looked up and saw a beautiful crystal-clear river flowing alongside the street. Suddenly she felt thirsty, and she had a great longing to drink from the sparkling river. "Go ahead," Yesu said. "It's for you." Kneeling down on the grassy bank of the river, she scooped the water into her mouth with her hand. After a few drinks, she felt invigorated beyond anything she had ever felt before. It was as if she had only been dreaming all her life and had just woke up to the sunshine streaming in her window and the sound of birds singing, or as if she had just come to life after having been a statue for all of her previous existence. The next thing she noticed was a huge tree that had been planted on this stretch of grassy land between the river and the golden street. Its trunk was so wide that it touched both the river and the street. The most beautiful fruit she had ever seen peeked out from between its leaves. "Every month this tree produces a different kind of fruit," her father explained. "Try some," he said, reaching up and pulling one of the shiny fruits off of its branch. As she ate, she noticed both the delicious taste and how it had a similar effect on her as the water of the river had. While she stood there savoring the delicious fruit, a few people came up to the tree and began plucking its leaves and putting them into a golden bowl that one of them carried. "What are they doing?" Seedah asked Yesu curiously. "They are gathering the leaves from the tree because they have healing properties," Yesu replied. "What kind of healing properties? I thought there was no sickness here," Seedah said, a little puzzled. Yesu laughed. "Not that kind of healing," he replied. "It is for the healing of the races. When people groups disagreed before, they often fought and injured and killed each other. This created hurts and fears between the races. Each ethnic group had a broken heart as a race, you could say. The hurts in the hearts of the people groups piled up over the course of history, making it even more difficult to bring peace between the races. When races disagree here, they all come and sit down together and drink a tea made from the leaves of this tree. It heals their broken hearts so that they can forgive and love and see each other's point of view. In this way, their dispute can be settled in a win-win fashion. My father and I, and those who have conquered every attack on their loyalty to me, then help them find the solution to the problem, and they are able to implement it peacefully. This is how there is no more war, violence, or strife here. Moving on from there, the three moseyed along the river until they reached its source, where it rushed out from under the square on which the royal chair sat that Seedah had seen in her dream, which now seemed like a lifetime ago. They climbed the steps to the huge, smooth, glassy floor in front of Yesu's father, where he sat as king. Running up to his father, Yesu jumped up and down a little in his excitement, like a child who has been waiting for a special gift for a long time, who realizes that the time has come. "Father," he exclaimed, "Seedah made it home safely, and she finished so well." His father nodded to Seedah and smiled. "Good job. What a good and faithful servant. Welcome to the eternal happiness of your master," he said. Blushing a little, Seedah smiled and looked down. "Thank you," she murmured, "but I could never have done it without the wonderful gift you gave me in Puan." After a thoughtful pause, she said, "Where is Puan?" "He is still on the earth with my friends there. He will be here when all of my friends are finally gathered here," Yesu explained. After another pause, Seedah's father said, "Excuse me, I have work to do. It was so good to see you, Seedah, and I will see you again soon." Seedah nodded a respectful goodbye to her father as he left. All she wanted to do for the moment was sit and gaze at the father's beauty and glory. So she did. Everything else faded away. It was as if nothing else existed in the whole universe but her and Yesu's father. Her heart overflowed with love and admiration and thankfulness to him. It was the most peaceful feeling and the most beautiful sight ever. After a while, she had lost all track of time, Yesu came up beside her and touched her arm. "Seedah," he said softly, "I have something to show you now." Helping her to her feet, Yesu gave her his arm, and they walked to the right side of the huge royal chair. Suddenly, Yesu made a sharp left turn and opened the door she had not seen before, a door right in the middle of the side of the chair. On walking through the door, Seedah found herself at the front of a sort of a courtroom. Yesu led her to one of the two chairs that were clearly where the judge would sit. Motioning for her to sit in one of them, he himself sat in the other. Hesitantly sitting down, Seedah looked at Yesu with questions in her eyes. "I am aware that you didn't get to read the part about this in my father's book," he began, smiling at her. "So I will explain. Because you overcame every obstacle that tried to take you away from me in your lifetime, you are sitting down with me in my royal chair, just as I overcame every obstacle that tried to prevent me from doing my father's will during my lifetime, and I now sit with my father in his royal chair. Now you will rule with me forever. As my friend Paul talked about in the book, sometimes you settle disputes between my warriors, and it will be your job, along with my other friends, to decide the cases of the world." "Oh, wow," Seedah said, feeling rather overwhelmed and inadequate. "How will I know the right decision to make?" "You have spent much time with Puan," Yesu replied. "You will find that you just know what he would say in any given situation. And of course what he would say is what I would say, and also what my father would say. And I will be here, ruling with you. The best judges on the earth listen to my voice when deciding their cases. In ancient Israel, the race that I was born into when I became a man and lived on the earth, before they had kings, they had judges, who were really more like prophets because they told the people who came to them what God had to say about their situations. You don't have to rely on your own wisdom. You must rely on mine, just as the judges of Israel did." With relief, Seedah realized that it would be just like how she had been living on the earth since Puan came to be with her. After what must have been days or weeks or even months, time was rather non-existent for her now, since there was really no night in this place, of the delights of eating of the fruit of the tree, drinking from the sparkling river, spending time enjoying the beauty of the Father, occasionally checking on how her friends back on the earth were doing, and deciding the disputes of the warriors and others. Seedah was sitting by the river, enjoying all the beauty around her, when Yesu came to tell her that her mother would soon be arriving at the gates of the beautiful city. "Thanks, Yesu," Seedah said, jumping to her feet and heading toward the pearl gate that she knew her mother would come to. There were 12 gates, 3 on each side of the city, but there was a specific one used by newcomers. Arriving at the gate, she saw that her father was there to meet her too. It was a joyful reunion for the three of them. One day, Seedah noticed Jesus striding through the city on his way out, a big smile on his face and looking like a man on a mission. A massive throng of the warriors followed him, smiling and laughing and talking amongst themselves. Wow, I wonder what that was all about, she thought to herself. After a while, they all returned with a massive group of Jesus' friends with them. Among the crowd of newcomers, Seedah spotted her friends Wen and Ui. Calling to them, she ran up to talk with them. At first, they could hardly converse, with all the excited hugging and laughing and talking all at once. Finally, they calmed down enough to make their way out of the dispersing crowd and sit down together by the river. "So what happened?" asked Seedah. "How is it that such a large crowd of Jesus' friends arrived here all at once?" "Well, we were all just minding our own business, going to the garden, doing laundry in the river, that sort of thing," Wen began, when suddenly we saw the clouds separating to reveal a patch of blue sky shaped like the tree that Yesu died on, and bursting through the blue sky between the clouds came Yesu and all his warriors. Some of the warriors were playing trumpets. Everyone saw him, even the witch doctor and the Buddhas, who turned pale and looked terrified. Yes, and Ulevan and Oradi, who are around here somewhere, told us on the way here that the soldiers saw him too, and their mouths fell open and they dropped their guns and fainted, Ui added, giggling a little. "So then what happened?" Seedah asked. "Don't keep me in suspense." Suddenly, Yesu's friends who had died started appearing everywhere, and they were going up in the sky to where Yesu was, Wen continued. The soldiers who hadn't fainted recognized some of them as people they had killed earlier, and they were frozen with terror and even started wailing and crying. After that, most of the warriors who were with Yesu rushed down from the sky, scattering like snow over the whole earth as they went. They found all of Yesu's friends wherever we were, and each warrior grabbed one or two of Yesu's friends and flew back up to where Yesu was waiting in the sky. When everyone was there, we all took off to come here. "Wow, that's amazing," Seedah said. "I kind of wish I could have seen it." "You did," Oradi said, walking up just then. Surprised, Seedah saw herself walking with Oradi. "What is this all about?" she said. "Your body was raised with all of Yesu's friends who had died," Oradi explained. "It's your new body, fit for this place. Get inside and you will remember what happened as well as any of us." Suddenly, remembering how Yesu's warrior had helped her out of her body that day in the wooden building, Seedah began to understand. Walking over to herself, she stepped into her new body that would never grow old or die. The memories of Yesu coming back to get them all flooded into her mind. Bursting into laughter, she remembered the shocked face of the soldier who had shot her when he saw her show up at the sound of the trumpets. She remembered waving and smiling as she shot up into the air to meet Yesu. "You have been a spiritual being all this time here. You left your body behind," Oradi continued to explain. "When Yesu came back, he raised all the bodies of his friends to life as new bodies that will never die or get old. And then all of us who were still alive were changed into new bodies too." Sometime later, Seedah noticed that the warriors were coming and going in droves, and one warrior came to tell her to come out to the field on the north side of the city. Curiosity filled her mind, but the warriors were all very busy, so she just went to the field as she had been told. As she passed through a pearl gate, coming out of the city on the north side, an amazing sight filled her eyes. As far as the eye could see, in every direction were horses, white horses, standing around grazing or stomping and huffing as if they knew something big was coming, and they were getting restless. From the city behind her streamed thousands of people of all different colors of skin, facial features, and hair types, because they had all lived in all different places on the earth. Seedah was familiar with the different kinds of people because they had gathered in front of the Father's royal chair together many times to enjoy him and be enjoyed by him, singing to him together and talking about his awesomeness. But today many of them were serious, talking amongst themselves in low voices. Knowing these were the ones who knew what was going on, Seedah drew close to one of their groups. "What is happening?" Seedah inquired of the small group in general. "You are one who didn't have the chance to read about this in the book?" One man asked the rhetorical question. "Today is the day we all ride out with Yesu at our head to bring justice to the earth and remove every source of suffering. It is the day of war. The evil ones of the earth are gathering even now to fight against him and his armies." Hearing some trumpets being played loudly by the city gates, everyone turned to look. Sitting on a huge white horse, Yesu came riding out, dressed in a blood-red outfit, his eyes flaming. Seedah had never seen him like this before. The man who stood by her continued to explain. Sharp words will come out of his mouth today to destroy his enemies from every nation. And the evil ones who have led the nations astray and tried to force them to become Yesu's enemies, those evil ones will be captured and thrown into the fire pit. Yesu's friends, whose heads the evil ones have chopped off because they would not submit to becoming Yesu's enemies with them, these friends of Yesu's will rule the earth for 1,000 years, after which time the ancient dragon will be released from his prison. The ancient dragon will again deceive the nations, and they will gather to attack the city where Yesu's friends have been ruling from. At that time, fire will come down from Yesu's Father here and destroy his enemies. Then the ancient dragon will finally be thrown into the fire pit forever. The earth will melt in a blazing fire, and Yesu's Father will make a new earth with new skies. At that time, this beautiful city that we live in now will be lowered to the new earth. Every evil thing, everyone who causes suffering, will be in the fire pit with the ancient dragon. There will never again be any suffering of any kind on the new earth because evil people are gone. They can never come to Yesu's place to cause any suffering. There will be no death, no pain, no sickness, no sorrow, and no fighting. Yesu's Father will wipe every tear from the eyes of Yesu's friends, and they will be eternally comforted and live enjoying his pleasures forever. All around them, people were starting to mount the horses, so Seedah and the group she had been talking with mounted some nearby horses as well. Spotting her friends and her family, she rode over to be among their group of horses. She told them what she had just learned. The tall warriors walked among the mounted people, passing out golden helmets, shields, and swords to each one. Everyone except Yesu was dressed all in bright white. All around her stretched a vast sea of almost blinding whiteness. Seedah and her friends were starting to feel the excitement that was spreading through the whole vast army. As she put her face shield down, Seedah urged her horse forward to join the ranks. The armies of Yesu rode out to the edge of the grass surrounding the city and leaped into the air row by row to fly down to where the armies of the earth could see them. Flying on a white horse in the midst of a mighty army of warriors and people was more exhilarating than anything Seedah had ever experienced before. When they finally arrived at the battlefield, it was awesome to watch the enemy lines melt before Yesu's mighty words and the warriors and people who rushed in to carry out his orders. Some of Yesu's biggest and most powerful warriors swooped in and grabbed the enemy army's 2 leaders, and right in front of everyone, another warrior opened a huge door in the ground that led to the great fire pit. And the warriors threw the leaders, still alive and defiantly yelling and screaming curses at Yesu and his army, into the fire pit. The smoke and heat of the fire pit wafted away when the source was again cut off from the earth by the clanking door as it slammed shut. The rest of the battle was no contest. The enemy lines fell dead beneath the sword of Yesu's mouth. Shouting Yesu's praises, his friends and warriors wielded their swords to fulfill every word Yesu said. The vultures and other carrion birds came to clean up the mess. Yesu and his warriors raised up those who had died, standing up to the 2 evil leaders who had just been disposed of, and established them in their 1,000-year kingdom. Then everyone who had come with Yesu rode back to the beautiful city in the sky, laughing and talking amongst themselves, retelling the awesome things they had all seen that day. As Seedah and her friends and family enjoyed the life that Yesu had prepared for them in the beautiful city, days became weeks, weeks became months, months became years, and before Seedah knew it, it was time for the beautiful city to be lowered to the earth. There was much excitement as they went about readying the city for the final wave of newcomers. As the newcomers arrived, everyone stood on the golden streets, gazing down to watch the grand finale of Yesu's Father's blazing fire melting the old earth and the old skies into nothingness, then creating the new earth and the new skies for his beautiful city to come down to. As everyone heard his beautiful booming voice, sounding like massive waterfalls, they turned to look at him on his royal chair in the middle of the city. "Look," he said triumphantly and joyfully, "look, I am making everything new." His joy rose up inside each and every one of them, filling their hearts with his happiness as the city went down to its final place on the new earth. The end.